Wait a moment until colleagues take their seats. So good morning to you all. The session adjourned on the 12th of February 2026 is reopened. I have a couple of announcements. First of all, following the appointment of Tom Berendsen to the Dutch government, Parliament takes note of the vacancy of his seat from 23rd February 2026 in accordance with the rules of procedure. And following the appointment of Daniel Caspary as member of the European Court of Auditors, Parliament takes note of the vacancy of his seat from the 1st of March 2026 in accordance with the rules of procedure. Elisabetta Gualmini is no longer a member of the S&D Group and joins the Renew Europe Group as of the 24th of February 2026. And Roberto Vannacci is a member of the ESN Group as of the 24th of February 2026. The EPP, S&D and Renew Europe groups have notified me of decisions relating to changes to appointments within committees and delegations. These decisions will be set out in the minutes of today's sitting and take effect on the date of this announcement. I'd like to inform you that together with the President of the Council, I shall today sign 6 acts adopted under the ordinary legislative procedure in accordance with Rule 81 of Parliament's Rule of Procedure. The titles of the acts are the following and will be published in the minutes of this sitting. Enhanced cooperation on the establishment of the Ukraine support loan for 2026 and 2027, establishing the Ukraine facility, certain corporate sustainability reporting requirements and certain corporate sustainability due diligence requirements, certain market rules and sectoral support measures in the wine sector and for aromatized wine products, establishment of a list of safe countries of origin at Union level and application of the concept of safe third country. We now come to the order of business. The final draft agenda as adopted by the Conference of Presidents on the 12th of February 2026 pursuant to Rule 163 has been distributed. I have received no request for changes to the final agenda, therefore the agenda is adopted. The next item on the agenda is Parliament's statements, 4 years of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine and European contributions to a just peace and sustained security for Ukraine. I'd like to inform members that for this debate there is no catch the eye procedure and that no blue cards will be accepted. I would also like to welcome all the dignitaries present today and the 120 members of national parliaments who are with us today in the gallery up here. Welcome, dear colleagues. So, dear members, today we mark 4 years since Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine. On the 24th of February 2022, as tanks rolled across European borders and war descended on our continent, Russia thought they could take Ukraine in days. But Ukrainians proved them wrong. They keep going, refusing to give in, standing defiant in the face of almost unimaginable daily hardships, through the depths of grueling winters, even as drones fall indiscriminately and Russian missiles target women and children. That is why today we honor the bravery of the Ukrainian people. We reaffirm our concrete support and we recommit our efforts for a real and lasting peace. Today, we will be joined in a few moments remotely by President Zelenskyy once again in this chamber. When I first met with the President in Kyiv, I promised him that this Parliament would support Ukraine. And 4 years on, thanks to your efforts, all of us together, dear colleagues, we have not let Ukraine down. Because we know that when we stand together, Ukraine and Europe stand strong. Our actions are not solely based on altruism. We act because we know what is at stake for all of us. And I'm proud of what we have done together, whether by supporting Ukrainian society by delivering 200 billion euros of support to help keep everyday life possible for millions of people, whether it is delivering generators to keep the lights and heatings on in hospitals, in schools, in bomb shelters, whether it was supercharging Ukraine's defense capabilities to help those on the front lines and their families at home. And we will keep up stepping on our support. Later today, we will sign into law a 90 billion euro loan to shore up essential public services and keep Ukraine's defences strong, sending a clear message to every Ukrainian: your security is Europe's security, your freedom is Europe's freedom, and your future is in Europe, and we will keep working to make that happen. So now we will connect with the President Zelenskyy. Dear Volodymyr, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, dear Roberta, Madam President, dear commissioners and ambassadors and all members of the European Parliament. Thank you for your kind words about Ukraine and about Ukrainians. And most importantly, thank you for your constant attention, constant support, and your firm position on Russia's aggression against Ukraine. We truly feel that many Europeans do care about what will happen to Ukraine and whether we will be able to achieve a reliable and lasting peace. And we never chose this war. We didn't start it, and we did not provoke it, and we do everything we can to stop it. And this is not the first time in our history that Moscow comes to Europe with a very cruel, ruthless, anti-European project. There are many dictatorships in the world. Some seal themselves off within their own borders, trying to block any outside influence of freedom. And others do not recognize borders at all and actively try to destroy the freedom of their neighbors, entire regions, and sometimes even the whole world. When we deal with Russia, we face the second type of threat. It's a mentality, unstable dictatorship that cannot accept that in Europe every life matters. Human rights are important, and nations can be protected whether they are big or small. Putin cannot accept one simple thing, that somewhere people can live differently and enjoy a life that is not the one he prefers. That is why he has been consistently trying to break someone, not just now, not just for 4 years, but throughout his entire time in power. He is war itself. Yes. And anyone who supports Putin cannot fail to understand that they are choosing war. This was true in 1999, and it is true today. He doesn't even pretend to be different. Putin's Russia started with a war in Chechnya, then moved on to Georgia and openly disrespects the independence of all its neighbors except China and North Korea, because it depends on them. Russian forces destroyed lives in Syria and in African countries, and in many ways this is also what caused the waves of migrants to Europe. Russia supports the insane regime in Iran and ignores any number of killings. And we cannot pretend this is not happening. The European Parliament has never deceived itself and has never traded European principles for any benefits in relations with Russia. Many European leaders, national parliaments, politicians and millions of Europeans act with the same principles, and I thank all of you for this. And unfortunately, this is not the first time Ukraine has to defend itself from a Russian invasion, but it is the first time we have such a large coalition supporting Ukraine, and this is one of our shared achievements of everyone who was not afraid on February 24, 2022, and of everyone who is not afraid today. And today we must be just as determined and strong as we were when the invasion began. The threat hasn't become smaller. Yes, we are holding Russia back, but we have not yet guaranteed security. And only together can we do this together in Europe. Yes, together with America. And of course, we all understand that this is not an easy task to maintain transatlantic unity and cooperation in the current conditions. But I am grateful to everyone who, despite all the challenges, continues to preserve this globally important link between Europe and America, and between all the world's democracies. We must continue to firmly apply the full range of protection against Russia, from strong sanctions to real support for life after Russian strikes. Each of you understands what fills Putin's wallet with money and allows him to drag out this war. So there must be no place in the free world for Russian oil, for Russian tankers, Russian banks, Russian sanctions, invasion schemes, or for any Russian war criminals. The time has come to fully ban all participants in Russia's aggression from entire Europe. We also need the full range of security guarantees for Ukraine. Thank you. And to prevent Russia from spreading its aggression in Europe, and to ensure that we can support any European nation if it becomes a target of a new Russian war. Right now, there is an important decision on the table, 90 billion euros in support for Ukraine over 2 years. This is a real financial guarantee of our security and our resilience, and it must be implemented. And I thank everyone who is working to make it happen. Thanks, all of you. And it is important for us to receive a clear date for joining the EU. Very important. As a part of the diplomacy process right now, within all the diplomacy aimed at ending the war. And this is not just a wish. It's a clear understanding of how Putin will act. If there is no date, if there is no such guarantee, he will find a way to block Ukraine for decades by dividing you, by dividing Europe. We must protect ourselves from this. And I'm grateful to every European country that is working with us to support our energy system, our air defense, and our coalition of the willing. The coalition of the willing has already brought together European nations, the United States, Canada, Japan, and others. Please help give real substance to the work of the coalition of the willing and truly be willing to end this war. In many ways, we can see how Russia shows contempt for Europe, but Russians should learn that Europe is not just a land for the villas of Russian oligarchs. It's not a museum for the lovers of Russian officials to admire beauty, and not a place of leisure for Russian killers. Russians must learn that Europe is a union of independent nations and millions of people who do not tolerate humiliation and will not accept violence. Please. Thank you. Please continue to defend the European way of life. Please support Ukraine. Please support our diplomacy for peace and be effective. Every result you achieve is a line that Putin cannot cross. Thank you for all these years. Thank you so much. Slava Ukraini! Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Roberta. Thank you to all of you, dear friends. Thank you so much. We are very proud that we have such big support in Europe and in the world. Thank you so much again and again.
Thank you very much. Thank you, dear President Zelensky. Thank you, dear Volodymyr. Thank you very much. Thank you, dear colleagues. Now we will go to the debate. We start with the speakers on behalf of the political groups. With the EPP group, Michael Gahler, 2 minutes.
President, colleagues, this is a day of collective mourning, outrage and resolve. We commemorate all Ukrainian victims of this senseless war, the soldiers defending their country, the aid and relief workers and railway staff who kept the country running. We mourn tens of thousands of civilians who were killed, abducted, raped by the aggressor Soldateska, and the millions of refugees inside and outside Ukraine who fled Russian occupation. We think of the Ukrainian prisoners of war. Some families are sitting in the gallery. Welcome. All this is the sole political responsibility of the ruthless dictator in the Kremlin, who started the second fascist attack following the Nazi occupation from 1941 to 1944. Our outrage is not only about Putin, but also his admirers, sycophants and war profiteers inside the EU, such as Orban and Fico. Your disgraceful attitude will go down in European history books, labeling you as quislings even without occupation. The Ukrainians are the first to want to end this war immediately. Yet Putin doesn't feel under military pressure, the only argument that would bring him to serious negotiations. Trump's attitude is regrettable. Exerting pressure on the victim rather than the aggressor emboldens Putin. We Europeans need to strengthen Ukraine's civil resilience and defense capabilities. We need to deliver more air defense systems and deep strike capabilities to paralyze Russia's weapons production and strategic transport infrastructure. We need to prevent these oil tankers with flags mostly from small island states from passing unhindered through the Danish Straits, as the Copenhagen Convention of 1857 only provides free passage for ships of the signatory states. Our security guarantees for Ukraine must be crystal clear, entering into force immediately after the end of the state of war, fully encompassing the substance of Article 42.7 of the EU Treaty. That must go hand in hand with a credible process of integrating the country into the European Union. Ukrainians, you are not alone. The traitors are with Moscow. We are with you. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Galler. Now, on behalf of the S&D Group, its chair, Irache Garcia Perez, 3.5 minutes.
Gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you, President. President Zelenskyy, thank you for being here once more with us, although it is remotely. You know, this is your home, the home of European democracy. 4 years since the 24th of February 2022, Maidan Square in Kyiv barely has any room for more flags. Every photograph under the snow is a son, a mother, or a fallen comrade. Almost 15,000 killed civilians, over 40,000 wounded, tens of thousands of fallen soldiers, millions are displaced. Energy infrastructure has been destroyed in the middle of winter. The population are left without heating or electricity, and yet the Ukrainian people remain standing. This is not just resistance, it's dignity. It's understanding what nation means. It's a defense of Europe. Putin thought that Kyiv would fall in a few days, but 4 years later, he's not achieved any of his objectives. Ukraine has not fallen. He has not been able to set up a public government. Their will not fail. The lightning war that they expected has become the biggest strategic error since the end of the Cold War. But this war was never only against Ukraine. It's a full frontal attack against the European order, against the idea that borders can't be changed by force, and against people's right to decide upon their own destiny. Putin doesn't want peace. He needs war in order to sustain his regime. He needs permanent conflict and destabilization. That's why we should not confuse fatigue with defeat or negotiation with surrender. Today, we have to be up to the standards set by our own history. A loan of 90 billion with shared debt is a significant step forward, but it's not enough. Sooner or later, the European Union will have to confiscate the 210 billion euros of frozen Russian assets to fund reconstruction. This is not vengeance, it is justice. In Europe, we've learnt that those who destroy must pay. The 20th sanctions package is necessary, and whoever blocks these sanctions and aid for Ukraine is strengthening the aggressor. Viktor Orban doesn't represent peace. He represents impunity. And I say clearly to the pro-European forces, we cannot defend the European project while making agreements with those who are trying to destroy it from within. Every time that you agree or negotiate an amendment or vote alongside with people who support Orban, you are committing an offence against the Ukrainian people. We also have to meet President Zelensky's legitimate demands. If we recognise Ukraine's right to legitimate defence, we have to allow them to hit military objectives. Ladies and gentlemen, security for Ukraine means security for Europe. Today, the credibility of our union has been decided in the East. If Ukraine falls, then the European promise of freedom falls. If Ukraine resists, then Europe resists. Our generation did not choose this war, but it will choose how it ends. It will take time, it will mean sacrifice, but Putin will lose this war. And when the yellow and blue of Ukraine finally fly in peace above the blue and yellow of the European Union, we will know that not only did we defend a country, but also the very idea of the European project. Slava Ukraina and long live Europe.
Now, I give the floor to the chair of the PFP group, Jordan Bardella. 3 minutes.
Madam President, President Zelenskyy, colleagues, 4 years back on this date, Europe woke up to a nightmare on our continent that we thought had been reconciled with itself. We saw that a war of invasion was becoming a reality yet again. By deciding to invade Ukraine, to attack Ukraine, Vladimir Putin decided to violate the borders and the idea that no country can be submitted by force by another country. Cities have been bombed, families have been torn apart, children have been torn from their daily lives, infrastructure has been methodically destroyed. Considering this negationist approach, Ukraine has shown us something that nothing can break: the identity of a free nation. Ukraine has stood with and responded with courage. Those who said that it would fall, it has shown now tenacity. Ladies and gentlemen, people have taken their liberty back from an imperialistic approach, and that is why the Ukrainian cause is something that hits at the heart of who we are. Yes, Ukraine must continue to hold and must be able to hold its force. Yes, Ukraine must be able to contribute. Europe must contribute to its resistance with a logistical support, humanitarian support. But our duty is twofold: supporting Ukraine without sapping our own nations, because European nations that are weakened will not be of service to anyone, including to themselves. Therefore, when it comes to an exclusive approach to purchasing weapons, European weapons, this is important, as well as the reimbursement. This raises questions in public opinion. In France, specifically, when it comes to this loan, a number of farmers have seen that they have a crisis, and they find the umpteenth unfair trade approach is a threat to their survival. Saying this is not being weak. It is not weakening. It is a democratic necessity. We have been saying this since the very outset. There cannot be any way out of this conflict besides peace. Peace that is negotiated to put down arms. Peace that means that Ukraine can guarantee tomorrow its security. Peace that we are calling for would not abandon Ukraine, and it would not be the perpetuation of a protracted crisis. It would mean a stronger Ukraine that can uphold its own defense, that can have clout with Putin without having to only listen to Washington, to protect its borders, to protect its farming, its industry. The period that we are currently going through goes beyond war itself. It's to a question of, will Europe be a servant to empires or to the power of its countries, to the power of peace and to stability and its people? President, I would like to say to you and to your people that your combat is not something that we are ignoring or that we have forgotten. And I would also like to reaffirm that veritable solidarity is not just a question of standing in indignation. It means that we have to take the acts that we need and to assume the consequences thereof. This new European architecture is something that we must work on, and it is this peace that we must also work for. Thank you.
To the co-chair of the ECR group, Nicola Procaccini. 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, 4 years ago, the world stood by as the foundations of the international order were torn down. Today we gather, not out of obligation, but out of conviction. We are here to clearly and firmly state that the freedom of all European people is inseparably linked to the freedom of the people of Ukraine. We all know that this is a war of Russian expansion, and it has never been a war of expansion by the European Union or by NATO. 4 years of war have taught us that peace is not a feeling but a balance. The balance that rests on two pillars, deterrence and diplomacy. Without deterrence, diplomacy is merely a request. Without diplomacy, deterrence becomes a waste of strength and resources. Europe must be able to uphold both pillars together with clarity and determination. History will not judge us by the words we have spoken, but by the courage we show in ensuring that the light of freedom in Kyiv continues to shine through the darkness of this long night. You see, I do not take issue with those on the left of this chamber, like Vladimir Putin, who celebrates the cult of Stalin by dedicating statues and airports to him, regret the fall of the Soviet Union. No, I take issue with those on the right of this chamber who are not moved by the sacrifice of a people who are showing the entire world what it means to love one's country. Men and women, the elderly at the front and children studying underground have been resisting for 4 years the invasion of an army 5 times larger, an army forced to empty its prisons to recruit thousands of mercenaries and even to receive soldiers from North Korea. And yet it has not been broken. I don't know when this war will end, but I know that history will kneel before the Ukrainian patriots, while it will look with contempt upon those who are turning their backs on Ukraine, on freedom and on honor.
To the chair of the Renew Europe Group, Valérie Ayé, 3 minutes.
Thank you, President. Colleagues, what is the European Union? What does it mean to be European? Our Europe is a continent that has decided to make peace a political project. Since 4 years ago, we have been feeling this with renewed force. Now, since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, these words have a new meaning. We see that they have a face and a voice, that of the Ukrainian people. Ukrainians who live in Kherson have raised a flag, that of the European Union. Kherson is the symbol of unbelievable solidarity because facing Russian drones, what do the people of the city do? They use fishing nets sent by the people of Brittany to protect themselves. The European Union today is the main supporter of Ukraine in financial terms, military and political. The Renew Europe group is proud of having supported this from the very first day. Today, what we're seeing is a split. In this hemicycle, there are those of us on the side of Kyiv, and there are those who support and play the game of Vladimir Putin, whether we're talking about Fito or Mr. Bardella. Through your vote since the beginning of this invasion, by your speeches yet again today, what you clearly demonstrate is that you are very much not patriots and that you are not trying to defend Europe against threats from Vladimir Putin.
Et il y a aussi
in the council, there are also Putin's Trojan horses. Viktor Orban, once again, is blocking sanctions against Russia. When is this blackmail going to stop? Colleagues, Ukraine demonstrates a split. It also shows the strength of the European project. And it shows the dangers we face both in and outside of our borders. As we've said all along, security for Ukraine means security for the whole of Europe. Colleagues, the reality of the world today is that Europe is under siege by powers and autocrats who all share the same objective, which is to destroy us, to bring us down, because they hate what we are. The Ukrainian people are the first defenders of our values, our democracy. So I say to all Ukrainians, we share a destiny. Ukraine will be part of the European Union in the future. But in order for this destiny to become possible, we have to help President Zelenskyy even more. No peace agreement can be written without the Ukrainians and the EU at the table. It's our responsibility to ensure that Ukraine stands in a strong position in these negotiations. We have a political responsibility to ensure that our unity that we've expressed becomes concrete actions. We have to be able to go further, stronger on deliveries, on sanctions, on security guarantees. These are all necessary. This is the Ukrainian people's war, colleagues. They are the ones dying in combat, but it's also ours. This is an existential challenge for the EU. What we're talking about here is deciding the world that we will live in coming years. It will decide whether or not we can build a Europe that is independent in all areas. There's a lot that remains to be done. Colleagues, I started this speech with two questions. What does being European mean? What is the EU? Well, the EU is Ukraine, and being European means being Ukrainian. Slava Ukraina.
I give the floor now to the co-chair of the Greens Group, Terry Reintke. 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President. Dear colleagues, today we enter into the 5th year of Russia's invasion and war of aggression against Ukraine. A war that is unprovoked, unjustified and unlawful without any doubt. The bravery and endurance of the Ukrainians has inspired us all. They fought not only for their freedom, but for Europe's freedom. They have shown us time and time again why this European Union was founded. For peace, for freedom, for everyone to have the right to live in dignity. When Ukrainians stood with courage and strength against a brutal aggressor, here in Europe, there is one man who has consistently shown the exact opposite. In the face of Ukrainian strength, he has made Europe weak. In the face of Ukraine's struggle for freedom, he has acted cowardly. In the face of Europe's unity, he has become Putin's cheap servant. Viktor Orban, in the last years and also today, has not only betrayed Ukraine, he has betrayed all of us. He has betrayed Europe. Colleagues, and let me be clear, the 90 billion euros of support have to go to Ukraine. They are urgently needed in Ukraine. And yes, we need new sanctions packages against Russia. Also, this is urgently needed. Because, colleagues, there is only one way that we can react to this betrayal: to show an even clearer commitment to Ukrainian and European freedom. We need to deliver strong military and financial support, particularly in air and missile defense. We must ban all imports of fossil fuels into the EU to stop financing Russia's war. And we need to accelerate Ukraine's integration into the European Union. Colleagues, I know it might sometimes seem grim, but there is a brighter future ahead. We cannot give up hope, especially in a moment when the Ukrainians are standing firm.
Thank you.
Spring is coming soon and light will prevail. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to the co-chair of the Left Group, Martin Schirdewan. 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President Zelenskyy. I hope that you won't just be the president who has taken Ukraine through 4 years of war, but also that you can establish a peace. You spoke about diplomacy, and for us on the left, we need a durable peace, a peace that can only be agreed if Ukraine is sitting at a chair represented and fully represented. That is why we need to continue with diplomacy. This may be hard because of military aggressions from Russia and the threats from Donald Trump. So therefore, we need to find diplomacy to end this war started by Russia, which is threatening Ukraine and has been threatening Ukraine for 4 years. Ukrainian people suffering from Russian bombs night after night, and the energy infrastructure is being destroyed, and Putin's army is committing humanitarian crimes, and threatens the population. That is why we need to continue with the sanctions, which affect those that are started this conflict. And we know that Putin is showing the lack of negotiational power of the European Union, but we, for us from the left, need to look at the European politics, and we need to look at peace. Putin is building a big war, which is caused, according to him, because of fascist threats, and freedom of expression and democracy is being threatened, and autocracy is what exists in this country. But he fears democracy. So President Zelenskyy, I know that democratic rights and worker rights are being threatened. There are serious cases of corruption, and this affects money coming from Europe, and I know that Ukraine needs to correct this on its path towards the European Union. To defend democracy is one of the ways that we believe we need to support Ukraine. Thank you.
President Zelenskyy, he has been talking quite touchingly about many things, but what has to be said is that recently he's been behaving quite unthankfully, and he has no problem hurting countries which have been helping Ukrainians and saving them from the war and its effects. They have destroyed Nord Stream, German Nord Stream, to Slovaks and Hungarians. Last year they stopped gas deliveries, and this year they stopped oil deliveries. And let's be objective, please. I beg you, it's not the Russians who have switched off these deliveries. It was the Ukrainians. And nobody from Brussels took our side. Everybody just didn't care about our entrepreneurs, about our population. You keep on pouring tens of billions of euros into one of the most corrupted regimes, and you don't mind doing that. What we are clearly saying is that we are against continuing supporting Ukraine. We do not want to send any more money. We do not want to send any more arms, and to listen to more propaganda. Really, enough is enough.
Floor now to Nicolas Pascual Della Parte. 1.5 minutes. Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 4 years after the criminal war in Ukraine, I think the time has come to put the question, Putin, where is your victory? And the answer of the European Parliament is nowhere. You have lost politically the war, morally the war, and more likely you are going to lose also militarily the war. You wanted to topple the regime and to put a puppet government in Ukraine, but thanks to the resilience and the courage of the people of Ukraine, you didn't. You endured more than 1 million casualties, and you are more dependent on China as a minor junior partner than ever before. You have brought your economy to the verge of collapse, and you are enforcing a coalition of the willing in Europe, European Union and NATO, willing, able to support Ukraine up to the end. Which is our deal for the future? It's clear. We have to reaffirm here our unwavering support to the Ukrainian people, to increase our sanctions, to increase our pressure to Putin, because the only language he knows is the language of strength. He has to come to the negotiating table in a weak position. We have to bring our Ukrainian people in a strong position in order to get a good deal. And don't forget, Putin is not waging a territorial war. Putin is waging an ideological war. He wants to destabilize Ukraine. He wants to destabilize Europe. And he will not end this even after any ceasefire, even after a peace treaty. Then let's be clear about that. We have to support Ukraine even after the peace treaty with all our forces and our resources. Slavina, Ukraine.
Thank you very much. Now, Thijs Reuten, 1 minute.
President, colleagues, after 4 years of brutal aggression, terror and war crimes, and of Russia breaking its teeth on Ukraine's courage and resilience, we honor the fallen, the tortured prisoners, the abducted children, and all Ukrainians who have shown us what real bravery means. Out of fear of escalation, we enabled escalation. What if, in the first year, we had matched the determination of Ukrainians from day one? This Parliament has been at the forefront always, but Member States were often late or let themselves being held hostage by fake sovereignists like Orban and Fico and Bardella here. They are siding with the aggressor. Putin does not want peace. And pretending he does, or blocking essential support, is moral complicity and falling for psychological warfare. Europe must end fear-driven policy making, force Putin to want peace, act with real urgency, shape the conditions for peace, a European-led air protection zone, long-range strike capabilities and strict enforcement of a sanction, bringing Ukraine into our union. Ukrainians will not give up. We will not give up. We are one. Slava Ukraina.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reuten. Now, for the PFP, Csaba Demeter, 2.5 minutes.
1950-ben született egy történelmi nyilatkozat.
In 1950, there was a historic declaration. Robert Schuman made a statement. War should not be only unthinkable in Europe, but materially impossible. Over recent decades, that has been at the core of European cooperation. Unfortunately, von der Leyen has forgotten it, and many others too. War in Europe, it appears that we're supposed to give tangible assistance. Mr. Weber says this frequently, but we have to forget. We can't forget that we can, yes, assist, but we shouldn't get mixed up in a war. In Hungary, we have supported the victims. We have had parliamentary statements against the Russian aggression. We have welcomed refugees in our schools. And now there is a blockage of oil to Hungary, this blackmail, you call it. But what you are forgetting is that the consequences on a daily basis are their casualties. And with the billions that you are earmarking, there will be more victims. This is brutal. We're talking about 90 billion more in a loan. We've had some 250 billion already. The sanctions are reducing European competitiveness and increasing energy prices. Millions of jobs have been lost in European industry because of this. We know that there's a 1.5 billion that is being requested for upcoming years. So where is this money going to come from? Will it come from farmers? Will it come from regional development? Will it come from national budgets? Moreover, Europe should be focusing on peace. You are selling a pipe dream. We should not hit those who believe in the project. At some point, the war must come to an end. And the way it is going, Europe is going to become the world's inferno. We have to understand who is at fault here. Let us go back to what Robert Schuman said. Let us not forget this objective. Thank you.
Dembiela now, 1 minute.
Pani Przewodnicząca, wojna na Ukrainie.
President, the war in Ukraine has been going on not for 4 years, but for 12 years, as it started in the year 2014 by the Russians' aggression against Crimea. Now, the recent years have clearly demonstrated the imperial attempts of Kremlin. We were warned by the then Polish President Kaczynski, and we failed at that time. We wanted to have deliveries of cheap Russian gas, and this has helped the Russians to prepare a full-scale aggression against the Ukraine. Now, the Germans were helping the Russians by, for example, organizing military exercise. That's why Chancellor Merkel has blood on her hands. Now, we're now using propaganda and empty words. We have a negative support balance with the trade in Ukraine. We have transferred 187 billions of euros, but imported goods from Russia to the tune of 300 billion euros. This is a scandal and an ongoing scandal. How much time do we need to stop trading with Russia?
Petras Austrevicius, 1.5 minutes.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, colleagues, the brutal war of Russia launched against Ukraine has been going on for 12 years, spanning a third term of the European Parliament. In its failed attempt to seize Ukraine in 3 days, Russia suffered the historic defeat. Ukraine stood firm, turned decisively towards the West, and in doing so transformed not only itself, but Europe as well, profoundly and I hope irreversibly. Russia's atrocious crimes against a sovereign neighbor, against humanity and international law cannot be erased, not even by so-called peace agreement. War crimes committed in Bucha, Irpin and elsewhere can't be applied principle of impunity. Understanding, solidarity and steadfast support for Ukraine define today's Europe. They affirm our core principles, not merely in words, but in action. This is the response of European civilization to autocracy and imperial aggression. Let us not waver. Let us not falter. Let us not lose hope. At the same time, the Hungarian government's open threats towards Ukraine and its obstruction of EU policy stand as in stark contradiction to European values. It is unjustifiable and unacceptable. The memory of Soviet tanks rolling through Budapest in 1956 reminds us of what Russia sought to impose on Kyiv 4 years ago. Historical blindness carries grave consequences. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you very much, Mr. Austrevicius. Now, Sergei Lagodinsky, 1 minute.
Four years sounds like an abstract number here in Brussels, but in Ukraine it's counted by mornings in shelters, nights in the cold, and empty chairs at kitchen tables that will forever remain vacant. I looked into the eyes of what Russia calls collateral, a geography teacher who teaches her students the world from a basement, who draws Europe on a wall by candlelight, while her own child is learning the sound of drones as the new alphabet. I talked to a medic. He said it's not his dream to survive, his dream is to be remembered. We talked to Putin. We traded with him. We called him stability. Those were our mistakes. We own them. We repair them. But Ukrainians pay for those mistakes. Budapest Memorandum was a huge mistake, and now Budapest stands for more, for betrayal, for cowardness, for something that Europe does not want to stand. We will help Ukraine, and Ukraine will help us. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you. Now, Özlem Demirel, 1.5 minutes.
Dankeschön. Thank you, Madam. 4 years. 4 years of war. 4 years of suffering, of death, of destruction. This aggression by Russia needs to be condemned. But we need to put an end to this war. People are dying. People are exhausted. And of course we want a negotiated solution. That is what a teacher said. from Kyiv who came to Germany and stayed with me. Yes, the Ukrainians need our support, humanitarian help, and a program for rebuilding of the Ukraine. But we don't need any geopolitical declarations at the cost of their lives. Ukraine is at a worse situation today than during the Istanbul negotiations, which were supported by and stopped by the Americans and the UK and the European Union. 6 billion of the money was used for weapons. But instead of selling weapons and munition, and we need to get a serious diplomatic solution to this war. A refugee from Ukraine said to me, Mrs. Demirel, I understand your policies and I'd like to thank you, madam. And I was surprised because here I can only hear the cries of war. But what people want is for the war to stop. Peace is not everything, but peace is everything. We don't want to sell out Ukraine, nor Putin, nor NATO, nor your wish for war will bring us peace. It's to show solidarity with the peoples. Thank you.
Vor 4 Jahren hat Russland die Ukraine.
Well, 4 years, Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia has no right to destroy the national sovereignty of Ukraine. Europe supports Kyiv with a lot of money, 200 billion over 4 years. Most of the money comes from Germany, but we stand on our own. The Americans have stopped the payments. The French, the Spaniards, and the Italians are only paying a fraction of this war. German taxpayers are paying for American weapons to support Zelenskyy. Zelenskyy is not really going to win this war because of corruption. And Trump is making an effort to establish a peace. Mrs. von der Leyen is going to promise more money to Kyiv today. What do you want to achieve? What do you want to do with all this money you send to Kyiv? It's a good thing that Viktor Orban has stopped this 90 billion payment. We need to put an end to this war, not only because of the death of the soldiers on the conflict area. Thank you.
Meine Damen und Herren,
Ladies and gentlemen, the horror in Ukraine is coming into its 5th year. The EU has failed in the Ukraine. There are no peace initiatives, and the Istanbul negotiations failed. And today, Europe wants to continue this war, and that can't be accepted. We need to have a ceasefire with no conditions attached. We cannot keep silent. The expansion towards the east of NATO, despite our promises, and the attacks to Donbass of the Ukraine against the Russian-speaking population. And now we're handing billions to corrupt government in Kyiv. This needs to end. Peace is possible if we start going back to the negotiating table, and we don't want to send Ukrainian soldiers to the battlegrounds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Firmenich, to you and to everyone repeating Russia's narrative in this House. The one who started the illegal, illegitimate and unprovoked war in Ukraine is the Russian Federation, is Vladimir Putin. They are... This needs to be said. Russia has started the war. Russia is the only one who can stop the war right now if they so wish. To the people of Ukraine, we have to say today and every day, thank you for fighting for freedom, for democracy, for your security, but also for our security. The fight of the people of Ukraine is keeping Europe safe as well. And every night, while we sleep in peace and in our homes, millions of people in Ukraine are freezing, they are having their houses bombed, they are staying in shelter, their daily reality is survival, and they fight not only for Ukraine, but they fight also for us, and they keep Europe safe, and this needs to be said. So standing in solidarity with them is not only a moral obligation, but it is a strategic necessity for us. This is why we as a European Parliament were correct to decide in January to adopt fast in an emergency procedure additional support to Ukraine. And in February we gave our positive vote 90 billion euros for Ukraine. And we also need to say the European Union is the largest donor for Ukraine. We are doing more for Ukraine than anyone else. We matter and we understand that we have to do more for our own security. We will invest more from the budget of the European Union in our defense. We will help member states to invest in their defense because we know that keeps Ukraine safe, it keeps Europe safe, and it keeps the aggressor away. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to Jean-Marc Germain. 1 minute.
Madam President, colleagues, Vladimir Putin has never accepted the hope for freedom of the European people and the Ukrainian people. He went into Maidan with tanks and bombs. Victor Hugo said that we do not resist the invasion of ideas with the invasion of armies. A year of unrelenting aggression in Ukraine and Kyiv and elsewhere. Now, I'd like to state that the 108 martyrs and the portraits of all of these soldiers that are less in number but more in courage, that have died over the course of 4 years of courageous battle. Now, fighting for freedom, their freedom and our freedom, they need us. We will answer the call. We have seen Orban and his allies that have tried to block European solidarity, but I have confidence in this. On the 11th of February, this Parliament massively voted in favor of this assistance to Ukraine, and no one, Mr. Bardella, will be able to stand in the way. Slava Ukraini.
See now, Reinis Poznaks. 1 minute.
Madam President, colleagues. It's been 4 years since the full-scale invasion into Ukraine started. Well, it's hard to say anything new today. It seems that everything has already been said, but has everything been done? The outcome of this war will determine what the world for our children and grandchildren will be. History books will tell that the Ukrainians are a courageous nation, that they have fought against overwhelming odds, protecting their freedom, independence, and European values. I hope that they will also tell that Russia was the aggressor who received severe punishment for its crimes. But the main question is, for ourselves, what will they tell about Europe? Did Europe hesitate? Was it more afraid of escalation than the defeat? Or did Europe act in time, decisively and sufficiently? History will be honest and ruthless. It will not recall our names, but rather our deeds. And today, we can still choose what the history books will tell about us. And therefore, I invite all the member states finally to handle the traitors, the ones who protect Russian interests, and to make sure that we do everything possible that this meeting next year is not necessary. Thank you.
1 minute.
Madam President, for 4 years now, Russia's full-scale war has continued. Over the years, something has changed, not only in Ukraine, but also here in Europe. When the war started, we pledged our support as long as it takes. It has truly taken long. What was once shocking has become too much like a routine. Atrocious Russian missile strikes against civilians are no longer headline news. Russia is trying to freeze Ukrainians in their homes by striking energy facilities, and Russian war crimes pile after each other. Putin's war does not become less brutal just because some grow tired of hearing about it. It does not become less brutal just because some abusers here are ready to abandon Ukraine. Appeasing Putin does not give peace. it leads to more atrocities. This winter has been Ukraine's hardest. The question now is not only what is happening in Ukraine, it's also what is happening to us, because integrity demands resilience. In Finland, today marks the day when my own country has been independent for a longer time than it was under the yoke of the Russian Empire before that. We understand what Ukraine is going through. The whole of Europe must understand it. We must stand united in support of Ukraine. Ukraine must prevail.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to Alexander Jungbluth.
Sehr geehrte
Madam, now where are the efforts to achieve peace? The European Union, which is a peace project, is failing. You're just pumping millions and billions in the spending on weapons, supporting the corrupt administration of Ukraine. And also, Ukraine is sabotaging the energy supply in Europe, and therefore the Hungarian position is laudable. It is clear that it is blocking the sanctions against Russia because there is no solution to oil supplies to Hungary. You cannot support this if you're taking the wrong tack. And we need to be respectful of this. The situation, the lack of the rule of law, corruption in Ukraine, this is certainly something that does not support entry into the EU. Thank you.
Minutes. Hey, Ms. Kalniete, go ahead.
Dear colleagues, Ukraine is strong and has not surrendered for 1,461 days. Ukraine currently has the strongest army in Europe, with unrivaled experience, with innovations and technologies on the battlefield, and above all, with the will to fight and to defend their country, values and freedom. Yes, Europeans have done a lot to support Ukraine. Since the US discontinued its military assistance, we are now financing Ukraine's self-defense. But our assistance remains still disproportionate to how much Ukraine is actually helping us. Ukraine is currently a shield that protects Europe and humanity from the Third World War. It is Europe's duty and also a strategic interest to strengthen Ukraine's self-defense. Ukraine needs to be armed, provided with necessary weapons, air defense systems, ammunition. We need to provide Ukraine with the capability of striking deep inside Russia. Ukraine will become a European Union member state, even if one member state is currently blocking the opening of negotiations. We must be creative and politically courageous. Ukraine is so important for European security that it needs to be fast-tracked into the EU. We need to apply a reversal of the enlargement process, whereby, depending on the closure of the negotiating chapters, the country's rights and obligations gradually increase until it becomes a fully fledged member state. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you very much. Now, Marina Kaljurand, 1 minute.
Honourable President, Commissioners, guests, colleagues, today my country, Estonia, celebrates its 108th Independence Day. And still this day got a different meaning 4 years ago. I am proud of my country and how much Estonia has helped Ukraine. I am sad about each victim that this war has brought to Ukraine. And I can only imagine how it feels to live under total bombardment in cold, in dark, not knowing what has been the fate of people close to you. I am ashamed about politicians like Orban who protect war criminals and trade at the price of the blood of Ukrainians to get the Kremlin's favor. But I'm also ashamed about the European Union. In 4 years, we have not managed to destroy the Russian war machine and end the suffering of Ukrainians. it is in our power. We have to act enough about words. This is the only way we can look in the eyes of Ukrainians in a year and tell them that the war is over. Thank you.
To Beata Szydło, 1 minute.
Szanowna Pani Przewodnicząca.
President, Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen. In 2008, the late President of Poland, Lech Kaczyński, sent a message to the world and to Europe. In that message, he warned that then it was Georgia, but soon enough it would be Ukraine's turn. Well, Ukraine's turn did come, but for years European elites preferred to pump billions of euros to Russia in exchange of oil and gas. They preferred to believe that trade would replace security. The Minsk and the Normandy format were a symbol of half measures. It gave Russia time enough to rearm before another attack. When that attack did happen, toothless Europe counted days until the inevitable fall of Kyiv. But Ukraine survived because it fought. So 4 years of war is confirmation that Russia only understands the language of power and strength. My country, Poland, was right to warn against Russia. We were the first country to take in millions of Ukrainian refugees. We became true support for the fighting Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, let's draw our conclusions. Fair peace cannot be built on delusions. It can be built on consequence. We must prove that we have learned a lesson from our own mistakes.
Now I give the floor to Raza Yuknevichiana, 1.5 minutes.
Dear all, my first point, a miracle near Kyiv. This is what historians will one day call Russia's failure in February 2022. Let's try to imagine Europe today if Russia had succeeded in occupying all of Ukraine in the first weeks of the war. It's clear today, Europe was defended by Ukrainians. We owe Ukraine, not them to us. All people of goodwill understand this, but I am ashamed that there are people like Viktor Orban in Europe. I believe that the Hungarian people will soon help us all rid Europe of this disgrace. My second point, I do not believe in deals with Putin. Those who are forcing Ukraine to give up its land need to see what Russia has done in the occupied territories. Thousands have been abducted, tortured, or have disappeared. This is systematic, organized terror. That is why today I invite you to sign a letter calling for at least 2 of the structures committing crimes in Ukraine, the FSB and the Rosgvardia, to be recognized as terrorist organizations. We can and must win this war against absolute evil, whose name is the Ruski Mir. Russia must be defeated and punished, just as the Nazis were defeated and punished. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you very much. Now, Nacho Sanchez Amor, 1 minute.
Gracias. Thank you, President. This is a sad anniversary, but it is also a sad day because we have to accept what our moral imperative is. This is important because it is important for a generation of Ukrainians that suspended their dreams to keep a country, their homeland, and all of these martyrs that will never be able to dream the photos that we see on the walls of Kyiv. We have to make sure that all of this horribleness is for nothing. And this moral imperative is that we have to consistently remember the basic principle. There is an aggressor and a victim. And the current U.S. administration would like us to forget that. That means that peace is not enough. It must be a fair peace, a consistent peace, with the huge difference that exists between an aggressor and an aggressed. when it comes to this peace, what we need is our support, not to continue the conflict, but to negotiate in a position that means that they will be able to have fair, lasting peace, fair military assistance now for a guarantee for the future. Thank you.
Halitsky, 1 minute and a half.
Szanowni Państwo,
ladies and gentlemen, this war can be stopped today or tomorrow. One order from Putin, and this war will eventually be stopped, exactly as it was started, by ordering his troops to attack the Ukraine. How many children, how many women must die? How many Russian soldiers must die? Russia must pay for this aggression. And that is in order not to be thinking about repeating it in the future, because this war started in 2008 by attacking Georgia, and even before by adopting anti-European strategy against Europe. This is exactly what we said as Poles, and that was a bipartisan call coming from Poland against this Russian mentality of sorts. Sanctions are needed. We need to punish those who are guilty, but we must make sure that we are able to defend our borders, to defend our security. This is the task ahead of us. And as I'm the last speaker in this debate, I'm speaking on behalf of everyone present here in this hall. I can say that Ukraine has already won. It will be free, it will be European, and Europe has to be strong, and we will deliver.
That brings us to the end of the debate, and we will move straight to the vote on the joint motion for a resolution tabled by 5 groups on 4 years of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine and European contributions to a just peace and sustained security for Ukraine. We start with paragraph 4, original text in 2 parts, both by roll call. First part, vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Second part, vote is open. Is there a point of order? Does the machine work? Okay. Vote is closed. Adopted. Paragraph 5, original text in 2 parts. First part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Amendment 3 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Amendment 4 by roll call. Vote is open. Rejected, sorry. Amendment 4 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 22 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Paragraph 6, original text in 8 parts, all by roll call. First part, vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Second part, vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Third part, vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Fourth part, vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Fifth part. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Sixth part. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Seventh part. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Eighth part. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Paragraph 7, original text in two parts, both by roll call. First part. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Second part. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Paragraph 8, original text in two parts. First part. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Amendment 21 has been withdrawn. So we move to paragraph 9, original text in three parts. First part. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Third part by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. I give the floor to Mr. Petras Austrevicius to move an oral amendment to paragraph 11.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, I wish to make a proposal to extend para 11 with the following amendment. Strongly deplores the Hungarian government's continued obstruction of EU support for Ukraine, as well as the Slovak government's announced decision to cut off emergency electricity supplies to Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there opposition to the oral amendment? Okay. Cannot be taken. We move to the next vote. Amendment 5 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 6 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 7 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 8 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 9 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Paragraph 12, original text in two parts. First part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Amendment 10 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 11 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Paragraph 13, original text in three parts. First part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Third part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Amendment 12 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Paragraph 15, original text in two parts. First part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Amendment 13 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 14 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 15 in 4 parts, all by roll call. First part, vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Second part, vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Third part, vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Fourth part, vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Amendment 16 by roll call, vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Paragraph 18, original text by roll call, vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Amendment 17. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Let's check this. Amendment 17. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 18 in 2 parts, both by roll call. First part, vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Second part, vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Amendment 19 by roll call, vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Paragraph 23, original text in 2 parts. First part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part, by roll call, vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Amendment 20, by roll call, vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 1. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Rejected. Amendment 2. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Rejected. We vote on the resolution as a whole. By roll call, vote is open. Vote is closed. And it is adopted. Very well. Thank you. Thank you, dear colleagues, for being here. The minutes of this sitting will be submitted to Parliament for its approval at the beginning of its next sitting. If there are no objections, I shall forward the resolution adopted at today's sitting to the persons and bodies named in the resolution. The next part session will take place from the 9th to the 12th of March. This session is adjourned and the sitting is closed.